Dear friends, hello to you. With all due respect to the school and the scientists who talk about the structure of the world, I see a paradox. The main thing a person needs to be happy is the ability to interact harmoniously with society. And what subject teaches us this harmony? None. Yes, literature, history, sociology tell us a lot of useful things. But the main thing remains a secret. Yes, a secret. And what is this secret knowledge? We are not told about the structure of power, but power is the main source of all the benefits or mithi persons. And then as an illustration, Campeche, Cambodia, the Khmer Rouge. How did people give power to usurpers who destroyed about 1 million souls? And another example, Corazon Aquino, how a housewife won the elections and coped with the role of president. And although she was opposed by old officials and the entire apparatus. So what is power? When and how do we give power to strangers? And now, why do we believe that this is for our own good? These questions seem absurd. After all, there are parties and leaders everywhere, and they become deputies and authorities. This is the accepted practice everywhere. Misconception. In different countries at different times, power belonged to different forces. Tussauds tyrants, triumvirates, aristocrats, democracies, people's assemblies. And there is no everywhere, and this is the accepted practice. To each his own. The fascists wrote on the gates of the death camp. So do you think so too? Forgive me for a long introduction. Every person longs for happiness. This is an axiom. Look, tons of literature has been written about love and sex, but what kind of love awaits a prisoner of a despotic regime? Or what kind of happiness is behind bars? And how many books about power will you find on the shelves? 12, no more. Why? And therefore, let's start with theory. The first and most primitive level of rule or management is the reign of force. When the neighbor's big guy takes away your money that you gave him, you pay him for ice cream. That's the law of force. The strong warriors and successful hunters always became leaders. But here's a higher level of power. You go out into the yard, and the same high school student, or his friend, offers you an alcoholic cough, $5, and at the same time, he teases you in every possible way. What's weak, mama's boy? Should I continue, or will you guess the essence of the story anyway? Yes, in the end, you will become a drug addict. And it's not funny. Colonizing the continent, the Yankees taught the Indians to drink alcohol and gank alcohol. Ever, this is the basics of governance. Let's go even higher. Have you read Confessions of an Economic Hitman, John Perkins? Its essence is this. African leaders themselves brought their fellow tribesmen to the ships of slave traders. Because the traders managed to bribe them. No need to fight and take prisoners. No, it is enough to buy the corrupt elite. U.S. corporations, having bribed politicians, received the right to dispose of the resources of any country for mere trifles. In addition, the country fell into bondage to the bank. But the corrupt president does not care about the people. A striking example is the collapse of the USSR, from which only corrupt presidents and officials benefit. And the people have been dying out for 30 years. Look at the demographics. It is impossible to hide. And the population loss is 1 million a year. This is how money and gold rule this world. But this is not the most effective way to seize power. Here is another example. The First World War is underway. Now it would seem that every soldier in the trenches dreams of winning and returning home as a hero. But no way. And the troops are already reading leaflets that clearly state our enemy is our government. Bloodsuckers, lanners, and capitalists. We must sweep away all these exploiters. Workers of the world, unite. Down with the Tsar. Yes, friends' ideas, new thoughts. This is also power. And a fanatical sectarian is ready to kill and sacrifice himself in the name of the idea that was instilled as pastors. And the ideology of Marxism also became a weapon. Land to the peasants, factories to the workers, peace to the people. And these are the slogans of the Bolsheviks. And the people accepted this ideology. Here is another example, factual power. And Russian schoolchildren from the first grade are told a historical theory according to which savages invited a Varangian, a foreigner, from the north to reign in their lands because they had no order. And this happened, if you believe the Chronicle, and in the 8th century AD, and the fact that the Scythians, Sarmatians, Huns, Goths, and other peoples, the indigenous inhabitants of the Russian plains, were one people. They just received different names in different centuries. This is hidden. And even the fact that the Slavs, still make up the majority of the population of Europe, although they were divided into states. Into pieces, no one says. The trick worked. We have a bunch of hostile peoples. Because it benefits someone. Because it benefits the Vatican. It benefits the British. But let's get back to the point. Nietzsche said, "There are no facts, only interpretations." Do you understand? Any fact can be twisted as needed. Propaganda creates fakes. They become facts in the media. And here is the result. People are directed in the right direction. The last level of control of the Heichen. And this is the conceptual level. These are false beliefs with which we make our earthly journey, believing that they are true. Because everyone believes in the same thing, everyone. An example. Here is a concept, Darwin's theory. The origin of man. Look, and then there were animals. They survived in the fight against other predators. But here is an accident. Some Pithecanthropus took a stick and used it for good. And the animal began to change, using tools, using pegas. And he gradually turned to a thinking man. It's all very beautiful. Why not believe it? But there are other theories that are not usually talked about. But perhaps we are not just the result of the development of a living cell that arose in the oceans, and that perhaps we were created by star guests. And then the question is, why did star travelers create us? And maybe they needed biorobots to work in difficult terrestrial conditions. And maybe our Earth is an ancient quarry where the necessary resources were mined. Why don't we consider these theories? And don't analyze what this promises us in the end. Yes, this is conceptual power. And we are in it like in a cocoon of a web from an early age. It is accepted. Final remark, the only rulers worth trusting were parents. They had the right to love and the right to blood relationships. And the rest. Pay attention to the outrageous fact. On the streets of Ukrainian cities, men of draft age are grabbed without looking at their documents and forced into minibuses. And because they supposedly must fight for Ukraine. The question is, and how did it happen that a Jewish comedian received such power over people that allows him to drive to Drylo citizens to their deaths? And yes, the count is already in the hundreds of thousands. All levels, all priorities of power are clearly visible here. This of power. The power is brutal and executes dissenters. This is a distortion of historical facts to create an image from Russians. And although Kiev is as Russian a city as Pskov or Moscow, this is ideology. And the entire legacy of the former Soviet Union is being destroyed. Monuments are being torn down. Nationalist Banderites, who executed Jews, Poles, and Belarusians, are being glorified. This is money. All journalists are bought. And the entire top brass has long been eating out of the palm of their Western curators. But all this multi-level work hangs on a thread. And the most important question, how many more people will this president kill before civilized society recognizes him? Tyrant Pol Pot, or are dictators always only red? And Zelensky, the hope of Europe, and who gave him the right to kill hundreds of thousands? And in the name of what idea? The answer will surprise you. We ourselves. We ourselves give up power meekly and obediently, because we refuse to think and analyze the essence of things and events. And complex thoughts about nightmarish events are unpleasant for us. We avoid them. Right? All the best, dear friends. This channel is about mysticism, unsolved mysteries, and inexplicable phenomena of our world. Subscribe and view videos.